Your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 2020 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series where your man Louie T aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2020 NFL Draft using our brand new grading scale from 5 to 1. Each pick will be assessed a score. We will then tally up all of those scores, divide by the number of picks, which will yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in this series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, are in total control as this is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this video and future videos in this series stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples would be Chargers next, LAC next, Bolts next. You get where I'm going with this. As a matter of fact, the next team up in the series is none other than the Los Angeles Chargers. New stadium, new jerseys, rebranding. Everything is brand new for this Chargers team, including the quarterback position. No more Phillip Rivers, who has been a mainstay for this football team since 2000 and about, let's call it 7 or so, when he finally took over for Drew Brees on a permanent basis. And when you look at this Chargers football team, and I've talked about this on the Louie T Network podcast about how this team is kind of going under the radar. You know, no one's talking about the Chargers, although, you know, Tyrod Taylor will tell anybody that will listen, don't sleep on us. This is a Chargers football team that I think is collectively being slept on. And when you look at all the moves that they've made, it's really fun to watch the evolution of the AFC West, because what the Chiefs have effectively done is they have the entire league chasing after them, particularly in their division, because how teams usually address their season and their organization is, hey, let's aim to win our division first. So you try to arm your team with the weaponry necessary to win your division, and then you go from there. Well, there may not be a tougher team to try to chase after in the league right now currently than the Chiefs, because of how high octane their offense is. And we've seen the direction the Broncos have went into. We've seen the direction the Raiders have also taken up. But the Chargers are the one team that has gone in the opposite direction and said, you know what? We're not going to try to chase their team speed. We're not going to try and be, football or basketball on grass, or track for that matter with the Chiefs in that particular instance, track on grass. We're going to try and bully the rest of the division. We're going to try to bully the Chiefs. We're going to try to bully these teams that think they're going to run up the scoreboard. We're going to slow the game down. We're not going to beat ourselves. We're not going to make mistakes. And if you can outscore us in a low-scoring physical ball game, good luck. We'll tip our cap to you and say you got us. But we're not going to go chasing around anybody, because that's not who we are. We're no longer that team. And you know what? It's not the worst idea in the world. And they've built a defense that can actually put the kind of athletes that are necessary to at least slow down, not necessarily stop, but slow down some of these high-octane offenses. And they added another piece in this draft. We'll talk about him in a second. But when you look at this offseason, they added a tackle in Brian Bulaga that's going to come in there and help solidify that offensive line. They also added a big-time guard in the mix with the trade. Russell Okung going to Carolina, in return getting Trey Turner. So you've solidified this offensive line. Now, really the hope is Trey Pipkins can step up and show you why you spent a third-round pick on him. And if he can do that, he started the final 2 games of the season last year for you. You're hoping that he takes that quantum leap in his second season. And if he can do that for you, all of a sudden now, you've got the line solidified. You've got everything you need up front. And now you've got a guy that's not going to turn it over in Tyrod Taylor. And you've got a guy waiting in the wings in your first-round pick, or one of your first-round picks this year, that you're hoping will come in and pick up that torch wherever it is left off. And then you look at all the weaponry that you've surrounded him with, and it's a really good setup right now. Now, you've got questions into the future. What are you going to do with your edge rushers? You got both of them going to be up after this season. What are you going to do? Are you going to be able to afford both of those guys? What about the tight end position? Hunter Henry on a franchise tag. What's going to become of him? Is he going to be in Los Angeles long term, or will you have to find another option there? There are a number of questions, obviously, but this team has put themselves in a position to compete and compete at a high level in 2020. And so I'm excited about the direction the Chargers are going in. Tom Telesco has done a magnificent job of building this thing. Now let's see, without Phillip Rivers, can this team sustain and maybe even take another step forward as they continue to build something in Los Angeles? As we look at this Chargers draft, it's a simple draft. It's what Tom Telesco has gotten you accustomed to as a Chargers fan out there. Generally, his drafts are 7 picks. He usually doesn't trade. He did a little bit of wheeling and dealing here. Did actually make a move in the first round. They saw a guy that they felt like would really help their chances. They went after him. But outside of that, 6 picks, in, out, not a lot of nonsense. Got the job done, and I actually like what they did here. Let's take a look at this Chargers draft in 2020. 6 picks in all. You see all 6 selections on the screen in front of you. I will be reading from my write-ups as I've broken down each and every single one of these players. And so we'll start this draft in the first round. Chargers had 2 first-round selections, the first of which came 6th overall. Quarterback out of Oregon, Justin Herbert is the selection. I'm not going to break Justin Herbert down here, as I've already done that. Draft Prospects 101 series. Got a full film breakdown of Justin Herbert's strengths, weaknesses, things I think he can improve upon, and the things that I think he does really, really well coming into the league. The beauty of this selection is that you get your guy. He doesn't have to play right away, which I didn't think Justin Herbert was ready to come in and start right away. And so I love the fact that he's able to sit and watch. He's going to learn from a very, very savvy veteran in this league and really learn what your head coach, Anthony Lynn, is looking for out of the quarterback position. Because one of the biggest issues Anthony Lynn had with Phillip Rivers was he just turned the football over too much. And Anthony Lynn wants a guy that's going to protect the Duke at all costs. Now, it may ultimately not lead to us winning a ball game, but you definitely won't beat us if you don't turn it over. So Justin Herbert, to me, is the perfect quarterback to have in weight, really learning the nuances of the NFL game, figuring out what it's going to take for him to lead this team and take them to the next level. And so this is a great spot for him. Doesn't have to start right away, and also gives you a guy with a tremendous upside. And if he's able to reach that potential, you could have yourself a star in the making. So I thought this was a no-brainer pick. Obviously, if Tua were there, I thought that would have been the pick, but he wasn't there. And if I'm the Chargers, I was okay with whether Tua or Herbert fell to me. And so they took the guy that fell to them, essentially. Had the Dolphins did something crazy, and I thought they were going to. There were rumors out there that they were going to do something crazy like take Justin Herbert. I think that was all smoke. And they took Tua Tagovailoa, and that left Justin Herbert for you to take, and you did exactly that, and it was the right move. And so in the first round, 6th overall pick, quarterback out of Oregon, Justin Herbert for me is definitely a 5. I think this was a no-brainer pick. Didn't take much thinking here on the part of the Chargers. Don't overthink this thing. Turn the card in. Get the future quarterback of your franchise. Allow him to sit behind Tyrod Taylor and learn. And we know Tyrod has a little bit of an injury history, so there's no telling if he's going to finish the entire season. But it'd be nice if you can at least allow Justin Herbert to learn from a veteran like Tyrod Taylor for however long he's able to learn on the side. At some point, you want to get him in there and allow him to experience the NFL game, the speed of the game, how things work, live bullets flying, and allow him to get his feet wet. Similar to Drew Lock in 2019 with the Broncos, and maybe that will happen for Justin Herbert in 2020. We will see. As we move on to the next selection in this draft, as we stay in the first round, 23rd overall selection, linebacker out of Oklahoma, Kenneth Murray is the pick. 6'2", 241, 4'5", 240, 17 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, no forced fumbles, no interceptions, 4 pass breakups for the Oklahoma Sooners in 2019 in 14 games. For his career, 37 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, no INTs, 6 pass breakups in his career for the Oklahoma Sooners. I had a late first to early second round grade, so he went right around where I thought he would go. I did not think he was going to be the second backer, however, taken in this draft. That was a bit of a surprise as he went before Patrick Queen. I knew he wasn't going to go before the Clemson product, Simmons, but I knew he was going to go somewhere in that 2 or 3 neighborhood. And so was a little bit surprised that he went before Patrick Queen, but not shocked at all. Honestly, when it's all said and done, because of the talent and what this guy brings to the table, his mental makeup, the leadership qualities. You're hearing that this guy's a better person off the field than he is on the field. And, that speaks volumes to his character. So you're getting not only a hell of a football player, you're also getting a guy that's going to come in and be a leader in your locker room too. So I think they were really smitten by all of the different qualities that Kenneth Murray brings to the table. So again, being a second linebacker taken, not that big of a deal, honestly speaking, when you think about all of the things you're getting in this package. The first strength is speed. That 4.52 shows up on tape, and at times it looks like a sub 4.5. I mean, this guy's flying around the field. At times he's a blur. His closing speed is ridiculous. Once he gets a direct angle to the ball carrier, look out. And a lot of times, feel like he's headhunting. A lot of these tackles are up around the neck area, a little bit OC. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But he gets the job done, and that speed is definitely apparent. And that's one of the things the Chargers are looking to do, is just add more speed defensively. While everybody else in the division is looking to add speed offensively, the Chargers are taking a vastly different approach and saying, we're going to add speed to counteract that on the opposite side of the football. And so they added Drew Tranquill a couple of years ago in the draft, or last year out of the draft, out of Notre Dame. And you already had the Florida State safety that has been a stud for you, missed a lot of last year with an injury, but you've got all of this speed defensively. Obviously, Boza and Ingram and all of these studs. Chinna Nwosu is a guy that's up and coming, and there's a lot of speed, a lot of talent on this defense, and now you're adding another piece to the mix in Kenneth Murray. Good angular frame. Usually, angular and good aren't in the same sentence. When you got an angular frame, usually that means you're kind of skinny, maybe a little bit lanky, long. Maybe you need to fill out your frame a little bit more. But at 241 pounds, at 6'2", his frame is well proportioned. And the fact that he's upright, a lot of people dismiss this or don't talk about it enough, how if you're a bigger backer over the middle of the football field, it makes it harder on the quarterback to throw the football over the middle of the field, throw the seam balls, throw the dig route behind that backer. The taller you are, the longer your arms are, the more athleticism you have, the harder it is for that quarterback to complete passes over the middle of the football field. And so when you get a 6'2" backer with the athleticism and the skill set of a Kenneth Murray, it just makes it that much harder to throw the football over the middle of the football field. Heat-seeking missile. As I mentioned, this guy just seems to find the football in very rapid fashion. Again, can be reckless at times in OC, but man, is this guy one that flies all around the football field. And so he's definitely a heat-seeking missile. High-volume tackler, a guy that put up some big numbers at Oklahoma. The 37 career tackles for loss kind of tells you that this guy was everywhere on both sides of the line of scrimmage, from sideline to sideline. So this is a guy that generally, when he gets there, he gets his man on the ground. Gets to the ball carrier if kept clean. Again, he's hard to keep away from the football if you're not going to put a body on him. He's one of those guys that he's going to find his way to the ball carrier by hook or by crook if you don't put a body on him. You've got to get a piece of this guy to slow him down, because once he gets a full head of steam, he's getting there. He's going to get there in a hurry, and he's going to blow some stuff up once he does get there. Versatility. This is a guy that you can do so many different things with. The 9.5 sacks, a great example of why this is a guy that you can do a lot of things with. You can drop this guy into coverage as an underneath zone defender. You can play this guy man-to-man against the running back or the tight end out of the backfield. You can blitz this guy. I just talked about the 9.5 sacks, so he can do that as well. He can spy the quarterback if you've got an athletic quarterback that's causing problems. He did that a little bit at Oklahoma as well. So there's a lot of things you get in the package that is Kenneth Murray on the football field. So you've got a lot of intriguing defenders that give you the versatility to do a lot of different things schematically. And this guy's just going to add himself to the mix to give you another weapon on what is really a very talented and athletically gifted defense in Los Angeles for the Chargers. Continuing to develop as a zone dropping backer, I think he can get even better. I think he's still learning about how to pattern match and how to cover guys once they run into his zone and not covering a patch of grass. But as he continues to develop, you see that this guy's starting to get it. And that's why you don't see the interception number right now. That doesn't have one to his name in his career. But I think that's going to change at the next level as he gets more and more comfortable dropping into space as a zone dropping defender. But you see the maturation with him. You see that he's getting better. You see him getting his hands on footballs. He had 4 pass breakups in 2019, which doubled his career output coming into the season. So he's starting to get a better feel for zone coverage, how to impact the game, how to make quarterbacks turn down this particular throw and make them go to another read. And with the kind of pass rushers you have in Los Angeles with Bozo on one side and Ingram on the other and Nwosu and all these guys coming off the edge potentially, if you can slow a guy up or a quarterback up and force him to turn down one of his early reads and have to go somewhere else, by the time he's looking to get to that third or fourth read, it's over. You know, Bosa, Ingram, Jerry Tillery, someone's going to hit home. And so you got to love the fact that you got a guy that's starting to get it as a zone dropping defender. He's an adequate blitzer. I just mentioned that. A guy that can get to the quarterback. And again, if you do not block him, he's going to get to that quarterback very, very quickly. And then leader on and off the field. I mentioned that at the top of his breakdown, how people just gush and laud and praise this guy for not only his behavior on the field and his demeanor on the field, but all of that off of the field as well. So I think that entire package is what really intrigued the Chargers to come up and take him in this draft and trade up in order to do so. Weaknesses. Can be OC and run himself out of the play or over pursue. This is a guy that plays the game hard on every snap, 1,000,000 miles per second. And so it's hard to turn that off with guys, you know, and I don't have a problem with it. You know, you can't ask for a guy to go hard at all times and then be upset when he's going hard and sometimes he goes too hard and overruns something. It's going to happen. It's just the nature of the beast. But this is a guy that sometimes does overrun plays, does over pursue, can be a little OC. I talked about the head hunting at times where he's moving so fast and a guy ducks and now he's grabbing him up around the throat area. I could see him getting a couple face mask penalties because he's a little OC. That's something I'd like to see him clean up. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to kill him for being who he is on the football field, which is an aggressive, physical football player. We'll get stuck on blocks from time to time. And again, when you see Kenneth Murray and he's a blur on the football field, 9 times out of 10, he's not being touched. Guys in front of him are keeping him clean, or he sees it and goes much faster than slow and is able to get into the other team's backfield and make a play. But when he is contacted, when guys are able to get to him, when that guard is able to get to him, or that tackle is able to come off and of that double team and get a piece of Kenneth Murray, that's when he is unable to then shed and get to the ball carrier. He can get stuck on blocks, and you see it from time to time when you're watching film, and the inability of him to shed a blocker and get to the ball carrier and plays happening that way. Over-aggression sometimes results into poor pursuit angles, and all that is just an over-aggressive nature that sometimes forces you to take false steps, and all of a sudden you start flowing to the football, but you've taken a couple of bad steps, and now you take a poor pursuit angle, and now you're chasing the play from behind instead of you meeting that play right where you need to end it right there, push him out of bounds or get him down on the ground. Now you're chasing him for an additional 5 to 7 yards unnecessarily. So, and a lot of times you'll see this with guys with extreme athleticism and speed at their respective positions on the defensive side of the football, whether it be a safety or a backer. you'll see some of these guys take some horrendous angles because they can make up for it with their speed. And it's not uncommon with these guys. Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson takes some really poor angles at times. Why? Because he's a 4.39 guy and he can get away with it. But at the next level, you have to be a little bit more accurate with your pursuit angles because these guys are fast too. You're no longer playing NC State, or in the case of Kenneth Murray, you're no longer playing against Baylor. You're no longer playing against Kansas, okay? You're no longer playing against Kansas State. You're playing against elite athletes that will make you look silly if you take a poor pursuit angle and take it to the house. So I'd like to see him clean that up. But this is a guy right here that I'm excited about, and I'm excited to see him in this Chargers defense. You know, you add Linval Joseph to the mix. You're getting even bigger and stronger and stouter up front. This is a Chargers football team that I look at and I just say they could be scary in 2020 if all of these pieces come together and you stay healthy. Derwin James able to come back healthy, stay healthy. Kenneth Murray comes in here and does what you're looking for him to do. Drew Tranquill continues to develop and does the things that you saw him do in his rookie season. You start to get a little bit something more out of Jerry Tillery. I just mentioned the addition of Linval Joseph. Obviously, you got the two guys coming off the edge, one of the better tandems in the league right now in Ingram and Bosa. And so if this defense comes together and all these pieces fit to the puzzle, look out for this Chargers defense. My comp for him is C.J. Mosley, a guy that's been an exceptional linebacker in this league. And I think he's got all of those same kinds of principles and all the same kind of talent that C.J. Mosley possesses. And so I see this guy having an immediate impact on this defense. And so in the first round, 23rd pick overall, linebacker out of Oklahoma, Kenneth Murray for me is another 5. The Chargers doubled up in the first round, taking 2 impactful players, one going to hit the field sooner than the other, but both of these guys look to be in the future plans of this Chargers team for many, many years potentially to come. As we move on to the next selection in this draft for the Chargers, 4th round, 112th pick overall, running back out of UCLA. Joshua Kelly is the pick, 5'11", 212, 4.49 40, 229 rushes for 1,060 yards and 12 scores to go along with 11 receptions for 71 yards and 1 score in 11 games for the UCLA Bruins in 2019. For his career, 454 rushes, 2,303 yards, 24 scores on the ground to go with 38 receptions for 264 yards and a score in 22 games for UCLA. This is a transfer from UC Davis, so only 2 years playing at a Power 5 conference. So was able to put up some quality numbers in just those 2 seasons, and it helped him get drafted in the 4th round. I had a late day 2, early day 3 grade, so this is right in my wheelhouse. Had him going anywhere from the 3rd to the 4th round, and I thought he was more of a 4th round back. And so you take him 4th round, sounds good to me. He was my number 13 running back in this draft class. He was the 10th running back taken off the board, so not too far off there either. I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on, but we start with his strengths. His size, he's thickly built. When you see him, he's got that kind of stocky, even though he's 212, he's got that stocky kind of fire hydrant build, you know, the kind that it's tough to bring him down, you know, or at least that's the assumption, is that he's a tough guy to bring down. I actually like to see him have a little bit better contact balance. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but he's got the size you're looking for. He's got that thick build, and I think it wouldn't shock me if, you know, he's able to continue to run at that 4.49 speed, but put on an additional 5 pounds or so because he's got that kind of frame to be able to do so. His quickness, he's got some really nimble feet, man. Really impressive feet. And I was shocked because he's tight-hipped. So I didn't expect his feet to be as fluid as they are, but his feet are really nimble. He's light on his feet, which allows him to make some quick changes of direction. And again, usually with tight hips, you're not able to do that. But his feet are so good. They somewhat overcompensate for the lack of oiliness in his in his hips. Anytime I hear somebody talk about oiliness in somebody's hips or their ankles aren't oily enough or something like that, it just makes me laugh. Anyhow, his vision, he's got tremendous vision, man. My favorite game is the USC game from 2018. That was him at his best. You know, some big runs, some great vision, some cutback runs in that game. You see the nimble feet there, then the cutback and the vision to see it and go much faster than slow. The acceleration is another strength, and you see it on display in that particular game. I thought he was fantastic in that game and has had some games like that where he's put up some big numbers. And so his acceleration, he definitely has that for a bigger back. And you know, I keep saying a bigger back, but he's only 212. But when you watch him, he looks a lot bigger than 212 pounds. He's like I said, a thickly built guy. Finishes runs. You know, he finishes runs very physically. And again, I think he's going to fit in, you know, with that backfield that you have. I've always been a Justin Jackson fan. I wanted to see him get more opportunities as a 7th round pick out of Northwestern a few years ago. But I had to slowly get on board with Austin Eckler. I had Chargers fans saying, dude, you're tripping. You know, you are super tripping, because I didn't give Austin Eckler any love until probably early in the season when there was no Melvin Good in the third, and Melvin Eckler and Austin Eckler, stepped up, and he was doing it all for you. Before he got banged up a little bit, he was doing everything. And I think Joshua Kelly's going to fit in nicely to that backfield, you know. And he competes in pass pro. You know, he gives you a little something there as well. He's not terrible in that department. So, you know, if you want to sneak him on the field on a 3rd down, you're able to do that, even though you have one of the better 3rd down backs in the league right now in Austin Eckler. Weaknesses: despite his 40 time, he isn't a true home run hitter. And saw him get caught from behind a number of times. He's a guy that can run. Don't get it twisted. He'll hit some triples, and there'll be a bunch of doubles, and there'll be the occasional home run as well. But a lot of times, he's not going to be able to outrun that last defender. If he's got speed in any kind of angle, he's going to end up getting pushed out of bounds. Somewhat stiff despite excellent feet. Talked about the tight hips, and his feet do overcompensate for that a little bit, but he's definitely stiff. Like there's no make you miss with this guy. You know, he's not making anybody miss. He's not breaking anybody off. He's not sticking his foot in the ground and giving you a shimmy and a shake and undressing anybody. He's just too tight-hipped for that. So he's got really good feet, and that helps him quickness-wise in the hole and things of that nature. But in terms of out in space, very, very stiff. Not much of a receiver out of the backfield. You know, kind of gave you his numbers for his career, and even in 2019, not a big pass-catching threat. You don't need him to be. You got one of the better pass-catching backs, if not the best pass-catching back in all of football in Austin Eckler. So that's not a problem for you. You're not going to ask him to catch a bunch of balls out of the backfield. He can do it if he has to and is asked to. But again, you got Austin Eckler, so you're not going to really be asking Joshua Kelly to catch the football out of the backfield. Can be impatient at times. I thought there were opportunities for him to be a little bit more patient, to set up his blockers, to allow a hole to develop. And sometimes he was a little too hasty to try to hit something that wasn't there. And yeah, he'd get 3 yards, but instead of getting 3, he could have gotten 13 on that particular play if he'd allowed things to develop. So I think he could use a little bit more patience when approaching the line of scrimmage and pressing a hole. And so I just think he needs to be a little bit more patient in his approach to allow blockers to do their job, set some things up, and then be able to cut off of those blocks. Would like to see him have better contact balance. He's one of those guys that you get a piece of his ankle, 9 times out of 10 he's going to go down. Like, I'd like to see him be able to run through a little bit more contact, stay on his feet, and pick up additional yards. Normally with guys with this kind of frame, they usually have better contact balance. He's got forward lean, but you want guys that can keep their feet despite someone getting a piece of their ankle. That last defender, you don't want him, slipping and tripping, but just getting a piece of the ankle and what could have been 88 out the gate is just a simple 9-yard run. Could have been a lot more if you could keep your feet. So I'd like to see him have better contact balance. And this is a guy that, for the most part, protects the football. 2 fumbles in 2018, 1 in 2019 for a total of 3 in 2 years in 451 carries and another 38 grabs. So it's not a bad number, and he didn't lose any of them. His team recovered all 3 of those. So no problems with the carry department in terms of protecting the football. So I liken him to Jay Ajayi. I see a lot of Jay Ajayi in him coming out of Boise, tight-hipped, but a guy that can do a little something with the football in his hands, has some speed, enough to threaten the defense, but not enough to necessarily be a home run threat every time he touches it. But there's a lot of similarities between him and Jay Ajayi, and I see a very quality running back here if he can just be able to show the consistency that you're looking for from him. Joshua Kelly, solid running back, and in the 4th round, 112th overall selection, running back out of UCLA. Joshua Kelly, for me, is a 3 as the Chargers continue to solidify their backfield as they start to move forward with life after Melvin Gordon III. As we move on to the next selection in this draft, 5th round, 151st pick overall, wide receiver out of Virginia. Joe Reed is the pick, 6 feet, 224, 447, 40. 77 grabs for 679 yards and 7 scores, 8 rushes for 42 yards and no touchdowns, and 24 kick returns for 796 yards and 2 touchdowns for the UVA Cavaliers in just 12 games. For his career, 129 grabs for 1,465 yards and 16 scores, 34 rushes for 172 yards and a touchdown, and 106 kickoff returns for 3,042 yards and 5 touchdowns. Had a late, 4th round grade to a 5th rounder on Joe Reed. So right in my wheelhouse for where I thought you got good value for selecting him, and I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on. Thickly built with a stout, compact frame. You don't generally see guys 6 feet, 224 come into this league at the receiver position. So right then and there, you're getting a physically built wide receiver, and it shows on film. You see a guy that's tough, that's willing to come downhill aggressively. You see it in the return game. You even see it with him, the ball in his hands, after he catches it. He's a physical guy, can make you miss, but still run through arm tackles and be physical with the football. So thick, compact frame, uses it very well, like the way that he's built. Outstanding hands. Man, I was so impressed with his ability to catch the football. When you see his body of work numbers-wise, nothing jumps out at you, and you say to yourself, this is a multifaceted, versatile guy that probably isn't the best receiver, but the total package of what he brings in the returns game, and you can do some things on jet sweeps and things of that nature, get it into his hands quickly on wide receiver screens. Maybe this guy will be a solid addition, but when you watch him and you actually get into the tape, this guy's hands are absolutely A1, and you can get it to him. You can climb the ladder, which takes me to my next strength. Tremendous body control. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm watching his quarterback get him the football, and it's high or it's behind him, and he's got to contort his body in the air. He's got to climb the ladder and go get it and snatch it out of the air. You're watching Joe Reed make catch after catch in some really impossible positions, but he's coming down with the football and he's showing incredible balance and body control, and he's getting a foot down in bounds. And so really impressed with his ability to catch it out of the air, number one, and number two, his ability to contort and make the quarterback right, contort his body, find a way to get the football and bring it into his possession. Can catch it in traffic. You saw that a lot from him on tape. Catching a football in some tightly contested situations, 3rd and 5, they needed a first down. They forced the ball to Joe Reed. And so he was one of those guys that they trusted in some critical situations to get him the football. And sometimes it was in tightly contested situations. Can create a little separation, not a ton, but enough to be able to make himself a viable option for the quarterback, Some quarterbacks aren't comfortable when a guy's covered and zinging it in there. That wasn't a problem for you for the last decade and a half with Phillip Rivers. He gave two shits about a defender being draped all over his receiver. He was going to give his guy a chance. That's not necessarily the case with Tyrod Taylor. This is why he takes care of the football so well, but he's also a guy that's not going to be willing to take as many risks. So you need guys that can and will separate. Joe Reed can separate, doesn't always do that. I've got some gripes with him, but some of it has to do with his team and the way he was utilized as well. But at the end of the day, I think he can create a little bit of separation. And so that's also something you like with Joe Reed. No nonsense north and south runner with the football. And you really see this on special teams, on these kickoff returns. He's not wasting any time. And to me, the best kick returners are the guys that aren't back there dancing around, not looking to go east and west. That's how you get blocks in the back when you're running parallel instead of vertically. You got to get up the field, and he's one of those guys. Look, you might take a shot. When you come downhill on a kickoff return and you're going 100 miles an hour, and then you meet a guy that's coming unblocked and he gets a piece of you. Yeah, you could go down pretty hard, but Joe Reed doesn't give a shit. He's coming downhill, north and south, as quickly as possible. And usually if you hit one of those seams going that fast, look out, you can go. And that's why he's got 5 kick returns for touchdowns. So when he gets, and it translates over to the offensive side of the football, which is why you can get it to him on jet sweeps. You can get it to him on wide receiver screens. He gets the football in his hands. He is looking to get north and south as fast as possible. Versatility. I've talked about this guy as a threat to catch it, and they lined him up everywhere at Virginia. You're talking about in the backfield. He'd get a couple carries. They throw it to him out of the backfield. It's all about creating mismatches. So you line a Joe Reed up in the backfield, and if they've got a linebacker on him, as they're treating him like a running back, well, then you take advantage of that opportunity to get him the football out in space and see what he can do. And so they would move him all around, start him out at running back, shift him, and send him into motion. Now he's got a matchup with a backer or a safety, and he's able to take advantage of that in the slot. They gave it to him on jet sweeps. They got it to him quickly on receiver screens. A lot of hitches. Also special teams value, a guy that is exceptional, not just as a return man, as I've highlighted already with the 5 return touchdowns. And he was one of the guys that probably left college football among the most return yards in college football history. I'd like to think that he's somewhere kick return wise in that top 15 or so in his career. That's a lot of return yards, over 3,000 for his career. But he's also a gunner and a guy that can get down there and make some plays as a gunner as well. So a lot of versatility here, and that just covers the special teams value aspect of Joe Reed as well. Weaknesses. Didn't run a bevy of routes. I hated the lack of route tree here with Joe Reed. A lot of his routes was simply him running 6 yards and stopping and turning around. A lot of his routes were, hey, get it to Joe quick, or it was a quick speed out, a speed cut, or a slant. There wasn't a lot of variety, and variety is the spice of life. You got to switch it up a bit. And they really watered down Joe Reed's ability to use some of the attributes that he has. And I didn't think it was very flattering of him on his part. In terms of giving teams an idea of what, you can do with him as a route runner. And so, you look at him, you say, can he create separation, which is the next weakness. Does he have elite acceleration? Can he create separation as a slot? And can he consistently track the deep ball down the field? And these are all questions that people have because you didn't really get to see him do it a ton at UVA. They really used him underneath a ton for his catches, and a lot of it was Joe Reed doing work after the catch, not Joe Reed going and getting the football. And I thought his best game of his career was against Notre Dame this year, and I'm a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan, and so I walked away from that game saying, man, Joe Reed's he's special. He's got some talent. And they actually let him go down the field, and he was able to make some plays. But a lot of times when you watch him, it's a lot of short passes, and they're asking Joe Reed to do the rest. And I thought they could have given him more opportunities down the field. Maybe they know something that we don't. Maybe they know this isn't a guy that tracks it well down the field or doesn't really have the speed despite the 4.47. Maybe they were trying to tell us something, or maybe the offense just didn't allow for Joe Reed to spread his wings and show a little bit more of what he could do. Does he have true deep speed? I think that's a question a lot of people ask because, and I'll couple it with this last weakness. Very few explosive plays that featured air yards. And so does he have true deep speed? I talked about him tracking the football. These are questions that you don't really get the answers to on tape necessarily because there weren't many opportunities. He catches a great deep ball, or a nice one at least, versus Notre Dame for a touchdown. And, very few explosive plays featuring air yards, meaning, he wasn't catching a football, going and tracking it 40 yards down the field and scoring a 69-yard touchdown. If he scored a 75-yard touchdown, it was because he caught a slant, made a guy miss, and off to the races. Or they got it to him on a shovel pass, and he was able to catch it and go much faster than slow, make a guy miss, pick up a couple of blocks downfield, and boom, turns it into a return man. And now 65 yards later, he's in the end zone. But it was rarely Joe Reed on a corner post, and all of a sudden he's gotten free, and his quarterback let it go, and he tracked it and went and caught it. And that's why a lot of people are questioning, does this guy have the speed, the acceleration to get vertical, to threaten corners? Or a guy's going to be sitting in his hip pocket because all they expect from him are short underneath routes? We'll see, but I can tell you this much. I like Joe Reed a lot, and I think there's a lot that you can do with him. And you needed an infusion of speed. I think that's the one thing you're lacking in Los Angeles on the offensive side of the football, especially at receiver in particular, is speed. I thought you really lost that element when Williams left last year for free agency. And he was the one guy that could get vertical, that could beat the defense deep, was Tyrell Williams. You lost that aspect of your offense last year, and I really need Joe Reed to pick up where Tyrell Williams left off. And if he can't do that, I think this offense is still going to be hurting from a lack of true deep speed. You don't have a lot of guys that can run at the receiver position. A lot of your guys are possession guys. Mike Williams is a 50-50, throw it up and go and get it ball guy. But outside of that, Keenan Allen not a burner. Hell, Mike Williams isn't really a burner. You look around at that group of receivers, not a lot of speed. And so I need Joe Reed to be fast and be able to stretch the field vertically. My comp for him is a watered down, great value version of Deebo Samuel. To me, that's exactly what he looks like. Similar frame, body type, can do multiple things with him. Deebo Samuel just set the Super Bowl record for most rushing yards by a wide receiver because he was so nasty on the jet sweeps, and it really hurt the Chiefs defense on the ground as a rusher. Joe Reed has those same capabilities. Remember, Deebo Samuel was an exceptional kick returner. Why? No nonsense, straight downhill, north and south runner with the ball in his hands. Joe Reed, same exact thing. And so I see a lot of similarities here. The only difference is Deebo Samuel proved that he was more dynamic at South Carolina. You didn't get that sense from Joe Reed, and I think some of it might have been the offense. Nonetheless, 5th round, 151st pick overall, wide receiver out of UVA. Joe Reed for me is a 3. If Joe Reed shows me the speed that he flashed at the combine, that 4.47, if Joe Reed shows me that on Sundays and he can stretch the field vertically, and there are a couple of big plays in there to loosen up the defense, this is a 4. But right now, I have questions, do not have the answers. Thus, it is a 3 as we move on to the next pick in this Chargers draft. 6th round, 186th pick overall, defensive back out of Notre Dame. Louie Gilman is the pick. 5'10", 201, 4'6", 40. 3 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 3 forced fumbles, 2 pass breakups, 1 INT in 13 games. For his career, 11 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 6 forced fumbles, 12 pass breakups, 3 INTs in 40 games, 26 of which came for the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, or 27, coming for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, as Louie Gilman came over as a transfer from a Navy after 2016. Only one season there, sat out in 2017. And I thought he had an immediate impact in 2018 at Notre Dame. He was one of my favorite players on that team that made it to the postseason but was wiped out in the first round of the playoffs by Clemson. I thought he came in and had an immediate impact. He immediately, to me, was one of the leaders on the defense along with Drew Tranquill. And once Tranquill left and actually joined this Chargers team last season, he was, to me, the guy that got everybody lined up. He was the guy that was the center fielder, essentially, even though he's not a single high safety. He was the guy that I thought everybody on that defense looked to. And so I thought he came in and had an immediate impact as a leader on the field for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So and he was a physical football player. I had a 6th or 7th round grade on him. You take him in the 6th round, so that's good value. I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on. But feisty, competitive defender that plays hard on every single snap. That was the first thing that jumped out at me back in 2018 when he first showed up. There were a couple of plays early on in that season where I said, who is this guy number 11? Where did we get him from? And I quickly found out, okay, got him as a transfer from Navy. And I saw right away that this guy was going to be a mainstay for the next couple of years, and he was. And it's all starts with his ability to just play hard, just period. Just every snap, going as hard as he can, looking to be in the mix. That's Louie Gilman at his core. Plays with physicality, fights to stay clean. Does a great job of fighting off blockers to try to get to the football. Also, he's aggressive at both POCs, both the point of contact when he's contacting a ball carrier and at the point of catch. So this is a guy that just plays an aggressive physical brand of football. He doesn't know how to play any other way. Has some suddenness and short area explosiveness. You know, the 4.6 doesn't do him any good back end of the defense. He can get beaten in 1 or 2 false steps and he's in trouble. And we've seen that if you're a Notre Dame Fighting Irish from time to time. But underneath, as a zone dropping defender, as a blitzer, as a run defender in the box, this is a guy that has the ability to close in on some spaces very quickly. There's some suddenness to him. There's some short area explosiveness and, you know, his ability to close the distance between he and the ball carrier, that closing speed, really impressive for Louie Gilman. Versatility. I talked about him playing everywhere for the Fighting Irish. They used him like a Swiss Army knife in both 2018. I actually thought his 2018 season was more impressive than his 2019 season, to be honest with you. But then again, it was a more complete team around him defensively. I thought we were actually faster in 2019 defensively, but we were a more veteran group that understood what each player needed to do to get the job done as a whole. And they used him everywhere, both years though. Box, slot, blitzer, underneath zone dropping defender, and as a split safety. So he can handle a lot of different roles. He is not a single high free safety. But you got guys for that on your football team. And so he's a guy that's going to come in. And we've seen the Chargers not be afraid to go with a big nickel package where instead of them having, you know, a bunch of linebackers on the field, they got 5 safeties on the field. Now, some of that was out of necessity, you know, a couple years ago, but they've shown the ability to not be afraid to put as many athletes on the field as possible to get the job done. And he's just another guy that you can do that with here in Louie Gilman. And special teams value. If nothing else, if you don't get any defensive snaps out of him, he'll come in and be a core special teamer for you as he was at Notre Dame. And I also put down leadership qualities because you're getting another leader in the locker room here in Louie Gilman. And even if it's not by his vocal leadership, it's a guy that's going to come in and just work. And you can't help but watch him and see the way that this guy's working, and it's infectious, and not want to work hard and not want to go hard for a guy like Louie Gilman. So weaknesses can be OC attacking the line of scrimmage and the ball carrier. Look, this guy, like I said, does everything a million miles per second, similar to what I talked about with Kenneth Murray. When you get guys like that, they're going to over pursue. They're going to miss some tackles. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to overrun plays. They're going to get out of the gap from time to time. And so you got to take the good with the bad. But I'd much rather, a wise man once told me, I'd much rather have to tame a wild man than to resuscitate a corpse. All right. No one's looking to try to bring back to life a guy that's lethargic on the football field. I'd much rather have to rein in a guy that's a Tasmanian devil than to try to wake a guy up that's loafing backside of a play. You're not worried about that with Louie Gilman, but you're going to get some mistakes. You're going to get some missed tackles. You're going to get a guy overrunning some plays sometimes. He will give it up. And what I mean by that is he will be a split safety, eyes in the wrong place, take a couple of false steps. He does bite the eye candy, very aggressive, just in nature. So if you throw some eye candy his way, that seam ball, not his responsibility. He's supposed to be eyeballing the deepest on that half of the field, and there's a corner route coming his way. You might be able to you might be able to get him. If you run that corner route at him and you run, let's say, a post corner and you run a seam ball his way, his eyes sometimes aren't where they're supposed to be. He's eyeballing that tight end coming up the seam, and all of a sudden that post corner, that cornerback's expecting that help, and it's just not there. Louie Gilman isn't where he's supposed to be, and now you're giving up a 57-yard touchdown just like that. So he will give it up from time to time. Over-aggressive nature can sometimes backfire, and I just kind of mentioned that already. So I love a Louie Gilman. And you know what it seems like to me? The Chargers love Notre Dame football players because this isn't their first rodeo with Notre Dame. They took Jerry Tillery in the first round last year. They took Drew Tranquil in the third or fourth round last year as well. You're now taking a Louie Gilman. They seem to have an affinity for Notre Dame Fighting Irish players, and some damn good ones at that. And look, some teams have this thought process of, we know what we're getting from this school. We know what kind of players they produce. And Notre Dame has done a really good job over the last couple of years of churning out quality football players, but more importantly, guys that get it. And I think you're getting another one here in the 6th round, 186th pick overall, safety out of Notre Dame. Louie Gilman for me is a 3 as we get to the final pick of this Chargers draft. 7th round, 220th pick, wide receiver out of the Ohio State University. KJ Hill is the pick. And just to go back to Louie Gilman for a second, my comp for him is Daniel Sorensen, the Kansas City Chiefs safety that they use all over the football field. I used to kill Daniel Sorensen. He made some of the biggest plays defensively for the Chiefs in the postseason last year as he stepped up and made some big plays. So if you can get that kind of production, I see a similar type of player, just a jack of all trades, a master of none, like Daniel Sorensen here in Louie Gilman, even though Sorensen's a little bit bigger, similar athlete, similar ability on the football field. Back to KJ Hill, 6 feet, $196, 4.6 flat, 40, which I know was going to absolutely deflate his draft stock, and it did. And I knew he wasn't going to run very fast. And honestly, you got to steal here. I'm just going to be very honest with you. 57 grabs, 636 catches, 10 touchdowns. So every 5.7 catches is a touchdown. I mean, that's huge. All right, in 14 games for the Big Ten champion Ohio State Buckeyes. Career stats, $199 and grabs, 2,312 yards and 20 scores in 53 games. So left Ohio State as their all-time leading receptions receiver. And so that's a big mark there. And it just goes to show you the kind of production and consistency KJ Hill put up at the Ohio State University. I had a 5th round grade on him. For you to get him in the 7th round, to me, is absolutely robbery. And we'll talk about his player comp from me a little bit later on. But strengths: reliable, consistent hands, and route runner. I mean, look, he's an easy eval. You knew what you were getting. I knew that his draft stock was going to plummet, especially after the 4.6. I think he was hurt by not having a pro day to try to clean that up, but he wasn't going to run very much faster than that. And I knew, teams were going to beat him up. And I'll get to that when I get to his weaknesses. But his hands, you know that he's got soft hands. very reliable. 3rd and 5, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 7. It didn't matter if it was Dwayne Haskins or it was his quarterback this past year. In critical situations, a lot of times they were looking for KJ Hill in those move the sticks type of situations. Not the big play situations. They were going to Olave for that. But in those situations where they needed a first down, to keep the drive alive, or they needed a first down to burn the clock, KJ Hill was the guy. He's the man for the job. Runs crisp, clean, efficient routes that create separation. And so I don't know if he'll be able to do it consistently at the next level because these corners aren't going to be threatened by his speed or lack thereof. And so they're going to try to be in his hip pocket. But, craftiness is craftiness. You know how to run routes, you know how to run routes. And you don't have to be the fastest guy in the world to be able to get free if you know how to run routes, how to stem routes, how to lean and create leverage. And he knows how to do all of those things. So those were all consistent throughout his career at Ohio State. Steady target that has the ability to make the quarterback right. This guy can go up, climb the ladder, go behind him. A number of fancy, nasty one-hand grabs while at Ohio State. Just the ability to find a way to just come down with the football. It doesn't always have to be perfect, but he's a guy that can make the QB right. And, those are the kinds of players that quarterbacks love because they know, look, I'm not always going to be perfect, but, in the event that I'm not, I'm going to try to get it to you in the best spot. But in the event that I'm not able to, I feel confident that you're not going to allow me to fail. And so he's one of those guys that will take care of his QB in that regard. Production, as I mentioned, big-time production at Ohio State, leading receptions all time at Ohio State with 199, the 10 touchdowns this past year, a monster number for just 57 catches, by the way. So did a lot of work in the red zone. As I mentioned, guys that can run routes. Those guys seem to separate a little bit better in the red zone, has a great feel for zone coverage, how to sit down in the holes and find the open space and make himself an inviting target to the quarterback. So he just gets it. He just does. Special teams value. Look, if you're looking for a guy to just field the punt and to not fumble it away and just do the little things on punt returns and kickoff returns, KJ Hill can do that for you, but you should be able to find someone better. I mean, obviously you drafted Joe Reed. He can do kickoffs. I'm pretty sure there's somebody on the roster better than KJ Hill to field punts. But if you got a guy back there fumbling punts away and things of that nature, and you just want a short-handed return man back there, then KJ Hill can offer you that as well. Weaknesses. And I knew this was going to kill him. I knew this was going to kill his draft stock. I knew he was going to get pushed down. And I knew some team was going to really benefit. Like, I wasn't the biggest KJ Hill fan, but I do recognize the value in a KJ Hill. And every team needs one of these types of guys that's just going to do the dirty work, going to go about his business human-like, going to do the 3rd and 3, going to do the 3rd and 5, move the sticks thing, and so his weaknesses, he's not flashy, he's not fast, no dynamic acceleration. There's that athleticism that teams look for, that pop, it's not here with KJ Hill. All right, and you weren't going to get that from him. And so I know new teams are going to bang him for that. And he almost went undrafted because of it. And, this is a guy, I'm just going to say this right now. He's going to play in the league for 10, 11 years, all right, with no speed, no flashiness, no acceleration. He's going to play for at least a decade. And the guy that I'm going to comp him to, a great example, and he reminds me, and the first person I thought of was this guy. And that's generally how I base my comps off of, is the first person that pops into my head when I watch that guy, who do I think of? And this is the guy, and I said, he's going to have one of those types of careers. Not electric with the ball in his hands. He's not breaking anybody off. He's not making anybody miss. He's not outrunning anybody. Generally, if he catches a football for a 12-yard gain, it's probably going to be a 12-yard gain. It might be a 15-yard gain or a 17-yard gain, but it's not going to be a 57-yard gain unless somebody makes an egregious error, but that doesn't matter. He's getting the job done. Doesn't scare DBs nor threaten them vertically. And I think that could be the biggest challenge for him is these aggressive corners that don't respect your speed. Now they're just over aggressive. Now they're in your hip pocket. Now they're challenging you to break them off. And he's going to have to prove that he can separate against sticky man-to-man coverage. And he didn't see a bunch of press coverage at Ohio State. And so he's going to have to prove he can beat press coverage as well. But if he can get off the line of scrimmage, I think he'll be able to do enough as a technician because he's got great body language. You hear Ohio State wide receivers talk about that a lot, by creating good body language so that the quarterback knows where you're going. And that body language is also deceptive to the defensive back. So if you give him some dandruff, a little head and shoulders, and you give him a fake to the outside, and now he's biting on that, you come back to the outside, you've just created a yard and a half of separation, and that's all the quarterback needs to get you the football. So, look, this is a guy that had no business being here for you in the 7th round. My comp for him is Jericho Khatri. All right, now I see Jericho Khatri written all over him, a guy that's going to play 10, 11 years in the league, never be overwhelming in the numbers that he puts up, but he's going to put up quality numbers. You're going to look up, he's going to have 77 catches for 927 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's going to be a key contributor on your football team, and you're going to come to love what KJ Hill provides for you. You've got guys on your team like that already, I felt like, but you can never have too many. You needed speed, though. That's the only thing that I felt like. And if Joe Reed can provide you with that, then this draft is a home run. But KJ Hill's going to come in. And again, Keenan has been able to stay healthy, relatively healthy the last couple of years. But we know Keenan Allen's history of injuries. If he were to go down, now you've got another guy that can fill that Keenan Allen role as a guy that can do the dirty underneath work that separates and gets you that 3rd and 7 completion and moves the sticks. So and this is rare for me, I rarely give these out, but in the 7th round, 220th pick overall, wide receiver out of the Ohio State University, KJ Hill for me is a 4, the rare 7th round 4. But I thought that you got a steal on a guy that should have been long gone 2 rounds ago at a position of need. I felt like to come in and fill a void on your football team, I thought that was tremendous value as we wrap up this Chargers draft. I thought Tom Telesco did his damn thing, and every year Tom quietly goes about his business, usually picks 7 players. They come in, they make the football team, and they contribute. Now you're getting to that point where you feel like you need to be able to see the fruits of your labor. You got it in 2018, winning 12 games and just missing out on the division, but then you regressed in 2019. Can you get back to that with a quarterback that we perceive is going to take care of the football a little bit better? All the things you need, all the ingredients are here. Now, can you get it done? I thought this draft was a huge step in that direction. This offseason as a whole, the Chargers were aggressive, which is something that generally not. Went out, traded for Trey Turner to solidify the interior of that offensive line. They signed Brian Bulaga. That's a big free agent get as a tackle. You go out, you get Linval Joseph to solidify and fortify that defensive front. And now you trade up in the draft, which is another non-Tom Telesco type of move. All of this aggression points to a team that thinks that they can win in 2020. And this draft score kind of bears that out. A 3.83 draft for the Chargers, which amounts to a B+. Really good draft. Took care of a lot of needs. And you couple that with the aggressive offseason approach of a Tom Telesco this year. And I say the Chargers are a team that a lot of people are sleeping on, which I talked about on my latest episode of the Louie T Network podcast. So make sure you check that out, along with subscribing to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so. Also, like this video, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Also, another great way to not miss anything here on this channel and this brand is through socials. Follow me on Twitter at Louie T Network, and on IG, Louie T Network _ there as well. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not, I repeat, not the best NFL coverage it could be. Until next time, you guys take care, enjoy yourself, but also stay safe out there. There are a lot of things out there going on. We'll reconvene at a later date and time, talk more Chargers football. And until then, though, you guys, take care. Have a good one.
Louie T Network.